Okay, there we go. You can write these in your notes or on the sheet. One of the reasons last week, was it last week, Mr. Valo? That we were doing factoring? Last week, right?
Yeah, last week.
That we did IXL factoring is because we needed to remember how to do it. And I know that a lot of us didn't get to quadratics, but again, we're going to be working, on that. So today is the 17th, and we're going to be working on limits with factoring. This is level 3 and 4. Okay, level 4 is a little bit harder, but that will come on the retakes, and I'll give you examples on that later. For limits with factoring, you will see, let's see, the difference between level 2 and 3 is as follows. Difference between level 2 and 3. In level 2, we had x minus 2, x plus 3 over x minus 2. Let's say the limit as x approaches 2. Am I off screen?
No.
Okay. We had this already factored. Same color. So this was a level 2 that was already factored. Level 3 is going to be different, where now we don't have the factors. We need to factor. So we have the limit as x approaches 2 of x squared minus plus x minus 6 over x minus 2. This is not factored, and this is a level 3 and 4. This skill right here is one we need to master in order to move on with calculus. Because in calculus, you are not going to receive the factored form already. You are required to know how to factor, okay? We're going to be doing a lot of practice in factoring with level 3 over the next few days, okay? So if you don't get it right away, that's okay. We will be practicing. We're spiraling in the factoring into our lesson, okay? So we're going to have some steps. Am I going too fast? Can I move up? Okay, we're going to have some steps that we need to do. Now, these are more like guidelines of how to do these problems. I cannot say that this is going to be the steps for every single problem. Each problem may be different, okay? You're going to have to follow these guidelines or steps, but you have to be able to know if there is a greatest common factor, if it's factorable, yada, yada, yada. So the first step you're going to look for is to find the greatest common factor of the polynomial. We worked with greatest common. Can I move this down? No? Okay. Right there? Okay. Excuse me. We worked with finding the greatest common factor last week. Greatest common factor could be a number. We noticed that. Greatest common factor could be a variable. We also noticed that. Remember in, I think it was the 3rd skill or the 4th skill, we were factoring out an x, factoring out a variable, including a number. So that might be a number or variable. So it could be a number and or a variable. Can I move up now? Anthony? Okay. The next thing you're going to do for level 3 is you're going to factor any quadratics. Miss Santana, what is a quadratic? A quadratic is a polynomial with a degree 2. Can I have an example? Sure. Here is an example. X squared minus x minus 6. This is a quadratic because the highest degree is a 2. Questions so far? Steven, sit up, please. Oops. That was my phone this time. Okay, third step. You're going to cancel any common factors. Any common factors. If there's 2, how many are you going to cancel out? 2. If there's 7, how many are you going to cancel out? 7. Okay? It is okay to cancel out all of the factors. And then last but not least, our final step is you're going to evaluate the limit. What does evaluate the limit mean? What? What did you say? Oh, okay. What does evaluate the limit mean? Thanks. Grab the sheet.
Which one?
Over here. Over here. Turn. Okay, so when we've canceled out the factors, what do we do then? What do you do with the x value? Gentlemen? Okay, that's okay if we don't remember. You're going to substitute. Can you see this color? No? You see it now or no? No? Okay. Substitute the x. When you're done copying this down, take out your example sheets.
Bottoms up. Bottoms up.
What's bottoms up?
The X method.
Oh, is that what that's called? I have never heard of bottoms up.
That's what we never heard. That's what they call it.
The X method?
The X method. Yeah. I don't know if I got it wrong.
I think it's all depends on the teacher who's teaching it though.
It depends on who calling it. Edward called it bottoms up.
Oh, she called it bottoms
I
up?
think he did call it bottoms up. That was the X method.
Are you ready? No? Okay.
What day are we gonna go to?
Oh. Anybody else need a sheet that came in late? Did you give George one? Oh no, he took one, right? Brian, you need me to zoom in or you're good? Good? Okay. Anthony? Ready? Okay.
Can I borrow a pencil? Thank you.
Of course.
I'll give it back.
All right, seniors, let's bring it back. All right, so let's look at this first one. If we substitute in 0 first, we will notice that we will be dividing by 0. You cannot divide by 0. So, because we can't divide by 0, we need to see if we can factor out something, cancel it, and see if we can evaluate it. What is it? Yeah, we can factor out the x, right? Both of these have an x in it. So this is what we were doing in the IXL. So I'm going to factor out the x. Oops, that's very large. So how many x's did I factor out? 1. How many x's do I have here? 2. This is 2. So then how many more do I need in parentheses? George and Osvaldo. How many more do I need in parentheses? Nope. We have 1 here. We need 2. How many more do I need? 1 more. Questions? Questions? Some of us are not writing this down. Why are we not writing this down? Okay, now let's look at the next one. How many x's do I have here? 1. How many do I have here?
2.
So when I say here, I'm like, I mean when I factored it out. So do I need any more? And this is where some of you get confused. If I don't need any more, it doesn't become 0. It becomes 1. Because 1 times x will give you x. Questions? Are we sure? I see some confused faces. Can I factor anything in the denominator? No. There's only an x, so I just put it over x. Okay? So that was step 1. I factored out any greatest common factor. X was my greatest common factor. Okay? X was my greatest common factor. Second step is, factor the quadratic, right? Do I have any quadratics in here? Do I have a polynomial? Do I have an equation with a degree of 2? No. So now I can move on to the next step. What's the next step? Cancel. So what am I going to cancel here? The x's. The x's, yeah, the common factors. Here, the x's are the common factor. So this looks like a level 2 problem now. This looks like a level 2 problem because it's factored. We're just taking it an extra step. Level 2 was factored. Level 3, we're just taking it an extra step. So now I have the limit as x approaches 0 of x minus 1. What is my next step? What does my next step say? Evaluate. So how do I evaluate? Substitute the x. So I'm going to take 0, substitute it in. I get 0 minus 1, and that gives me negative 1. Oops, you can't see that. Steven. You need to go get, no, you have one. Questions? Okay. Flip over your paper. Flip over your paper. Number 1. I want you to do number 1. Do number 1 in your groups. Do number 1 in your groups. Do number 1 in your groups. I'll give you 5 minutes. Brian, I'll be right there. Oh, I'm sorry. Who has, Daisy has, evaluate the limit, substitute in X.
It looks like there's some right there. It looks like it's just blocking.
Oh, yeah. Miss, Paulina, can you? Well, you just factor out the X, right? 3 doesn't go away, it will stay. 3 what? 3.
I wrote it down.
Okay. So what did I do here? You have 1x, right? You have 1x. What will that be? Minus 1. No, you're right, minus 1. Yep. What's the same in the numerator and denominator? X. Wait, where did you get Yep. Do you want to take notes because you weren't here? On the right track. So this X minus 1 is almost. If you it's gonna be X.
We're basically just taking out this
He wasn't here to take notes. Bless you. That's use the negative. You're Does this one have a 3?
It's scary.
They only have it. So this one right here. Okay, that makes sense?
Emergency, like. A little door.
No. Hold on.
Yeah.
Why did you donate? Don't guess. Don't guess.
Trying to say one again. But why did that?
Because you use the negative.
I changed it.
Thank you. All right, seniors. Seniors. I need to address a common misconception that a lot of you are having. So all of you notice that both of these have an x in common. So you factor out the x. But some of you are trying to factor out the 3. Gentlemen, do these two terms both have a 3? So you cannot factor out that 3, okay? You cannot factor out that 3. The only way you can factor out anything is if they both have the thing in common. Good morning. Thank you. So the 3 will stay inside the parentheses with the other x. Okay? Does that make sense? Seniors? Okay, good question. How many 2's? What does that 2 mean? That 2 means how many x's we got? 2. You said it? You see? Okay. How many x's here do I have? 1. So that means I need 1 more in here. Okay? That's why the 2 goes away. It looks like it disappears, but it doesn't. Because if I distribute it again, this would be 3x squared, and that's what we're trying to get. Okay? Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So now what should I do? What's the next thing I should do? It's number 2. What does number 2 say? Yes, we will cancel next. There's no quadratic, so we'll cancel. Okay. Now what? Substitute. Substitute what? And that will give me -1. Why did I try to write a 7? -1. Nope, you can't see. Questions? Are we sure?
What's that thing in the middle that is in the one?
It's a negative, it's a minus sign. I meant to write a plus, or I was going to write a plus and realized that, you're talking about this right here, right? Yeah, it's a minus. There you go. Better. Any questions? Are we sure? Yeah.
How come the x in the numerator becomes less than the denominator?
So the denominator already has an x, so we don't need to factor anything out. You would only do this top factoring if there were multiple things in the denominator. Does that make sense? Okay. Good? You sure? All right, now let's go to the harder ones. All right, here we go. Okay. Okay. So we're going to look at the numerator and the denominator. I'm going to look at the numerator and the denominator. I'm going to take this step by step. Does the numerator have any common factors? Do they have any x's in common? Do they have any numbers in common? No, they don't. So we're going to leave that numerator alone. Questions? There's no numbers. There's no variables in common. Now let's look at the denominator. Do we have do we have any numbers or variables in common? No. Some students will say, oh yeah, oh my goodness, there should be an x there. Sorry. Oh, my bad. Do each of these terms have an x? No. So you cannot factor it out. Some students will be like, oh yeah, there's an x here and here. But that doesn't matter. What matters is, Kevin, that each of the terms has an x. They have to all have x's. So I can't factor anything out because there's no variables in common and there are no numbers in common. Questions? All right, what? Okay, now, factoring the quadratic. Are we ready? Okay. I use the Batman method, so it's the one that I created, but you can use whatever one you want. Okay? Batman. In general, we need factors of this last term. This is called the C term. We need factors of the C term that add to the B term. Okay? And when I say add, you can add negative numbers. Okay? So one can be negative, both can be negative. So make sure you're playing around with the positive and negatives. So I need factors of 42 that add to be 13. I like to do this, and you can do whatever you want. I'm going to list my factors of 42 in pairs. So I have 1 and 42. 2 and 21. 3 and 14. 4 does not divide evenly. 5 because is not a factor because this does not end in 5 or 0. 6 and 7. And the reason I like to do it in this order is because when I get here, I know there are no other numbers between 6 and 7 and I can stop. At first glance, what factor pair will give me 13? 6 and 7. So when I add 6 and 7, I get 13. When I add 6 and 7, I get 13. So that means this is going to be one of my factors, and this will be one of my factors, and I can create a factor pair binomial. So I have x plus 7, x plus 6, x plus 7. And I'm going to stop and see if there are any questions so far. Is this coming back to some of us? No. Okay, what's up? Say that again? Binomial? Oh, binomial is just an expression with two things. Okay? You're welcome. Thanks for asking that question. Seniors, do we have any questions so far? Uh-oh. Are we sure? Because we're going to need to make sure that we understand factoring. Now what can I do? I've factored it out. Cancel any common factors. What are my common factors? X plus 7. So again, this is a level 2. Now we've went from level 3 to level 2. As long as you know how to do level 2, after you factor, you're good. So we have the limit as x approaches -7. What goes in the numerator? 1. Why does 1 go in the numerator? Because there's nothing there anymore. And now what do? Substitute in, evaluate. So we have 1 over -7 plus 6. And if I did my math correctly, that is -1. Questions? Are we sure? Okay. Then flip over your paper. And I want you to do number 2. I want you to do number 2. And then after we do number 2, that's where we'll stop and we'll continue on tomorrow. Okay? Number 2, we'll give you 5 minutes. You can talk at a level 1 in your group. Yeah.
So that's the C.
Give me 1 second, okay?
Oh, you gotta find the grades. So would it be 1 and 2, 12 and 26?
Hi, I'm sending Christian the list for a break. I know it's within the 10 minutes, but I'm going to take a break right now.
And multiply to be positive.
Yeah, it's 6 and 12.
Right. You need to flip the paper, sir. Flip the paper. It's okay. Just flip it over. I think I made a mistake. Hold up.
Where?
Mr. Roll, I think I made a mistake.
On the key
Yeah.
for number 2?
Yeah. This should be 42.
What? Oh my.
42.
No, one that was like 6 times 12 is 72.
Instead of 72?
Yeah, 42. Is that what you needed me for, Brian? Is that what you needed me